Hey there, beautiful people. So today I thought we'd have a look at doing the lamps that I spoke about last time. Over 2020, when everything had sort of closed down and stuff, I basically built and sold quite a few of these sort of industrial looking lamps. So I figure might as well make one on camera today, see how it goes. It's just a nice quick, should be a quicker video, shall I say, than what we were doing before. Got loads of bits and bobs over here ready to go. I could go through it all individually, but genuinely I think it's pretty boring. So I'll run through what I'm doing as I'm doing it and explain each bit I'm using as I go, maybe. We'll see what flows naturally, basically. Right, so this is our main bit of metal. This is galvanized 20mm conduit pipe. Comes as 3 meter lengths. It's threaded on both ends. I already had to cut a little bit off of it to get it into the van because my van's not 3 meters long. And basically, if you look up there, that's the thread that it comes with. So that thread's actually too long for us on our lamp head side, but on where our legs are going, that sort of length thread will be all right. So what we're going to do first, we've marked it at 1400. That's the sort of normal height for a floor standing lamp. So literally from floor to about 1400 plus the 50mm each side for the legs and then the actual lamp holder itself. So that should give us a good 1450 floor height to thing, and it's a nice, it's probably about there-ish height-wise when the shade and everything else is on. So I'll cut this here, and then we'll look at threading it. I'll leave you recording, but there's not really much I can say when I'm cutting it, so I'll probably put a little speed through, but yeah, trying to cut nice and straight as well, because obviously the pipe is up at an angle, so we then have to match the angle with our cutting. Because the last thing you want is this cut to be wonky in any way, because it means when you come to thread it, the threading will then be cross-threaded basically, and you'll just set yourself up for a nightmare. So yeah, try and keep it nice and straight. I normally with these, I start slow and then build up the speed when I know I'm consistently in the right place. So just at the end there, you see how I just sort of caught it. That's because we don't want the metal to snap. So if it bends and snaps, you end up with like a lip on it, which again just makes it much more difficult for you when you come to thread it later. Now we'll just check the ends. Check the ends of these. I mean, in terms of filing, you shouldn't have to file much, if at all. Like that's a clean cut, so I won't need to file that one. And then the thing is, because the cable that's going on it, when it's threaded, so if you see on there, it's rounded over, so the thread will stop here, so the cable can't really catch on anything. That's why they round these bits over for us. So yeah, so next part is this fun stuff, which is Tamaxol cutting compound. Basically, you just put this on, and it lets, when you come to the thread, it lets you get a nice bite on it, and it protects your threader from going and getting all blunted as well from the metal work and stuff. Generally just make the life easier. There's probably a better explanation out there somewhere, but this is what we're dealing with at the minute. What I'll do is I'll turn this bend around so we can get a bit more of a sight on it. So as you see here, the cutting compound's just around the end. And this here is 20mm threader. You basically, we're going to push that on. I'm going to make sure this is the guide, this blue bit. So this blue bit, this is the guide, and this will keep us nice and straight when the pipe's in. And this is our actual threader, this little bit here. So this bit, before off camera, I sprayed quite a lot of cutting compound on it to keep it nice and clean. And then you get spray cutting compound, and then the Tamaxol, which is like the thicker, gloopier stuff. The gloopier stuff's better for this sort of thing because we're going to be threading it over and over and over. And normally you do a 20mm thread, but this is our actual lamp head here. So with our lamp head, the thread inside is only about maybe 8 or 9mm. So we don't want to go more than that on the threading, because otherwise you'll see the thread come out the bottom and it just won't look very good. So that's what we'll aim for. But we'll do a thread a bit, come take it off, see where our lamp holder goes, and go from there basically. Unfortunately, I can't tell you the price of any of this stuff because a lot of bits and bobs like the threading tool and the Tamaxel and basically the drummer cable, all of it is stuff that I've used on other industrial jobs, and it's kind of like left over. So there's not much I've actually had to buy. So in general, depending on how you're feeling on this bite, you kind of want to thread it halfway, come back a quarter, thread half, and that will just stop any of the burrs getting caught and all the metal flakes and stuff getting in there. So we've got a nice thread on there. Let me bring the camera over and you can see it a bit better. So you see that thread on there. So that's what we've just put on it. And that's not as deep a thread as what we'd normally like to go. We'd like to go like 20mm normally. But what we can do now is just check our lamp head on there and make sure that you don't see any thread after the fact. Oh, let's give it a clean. Let's give it a clean down first. That horrible gloopy stuff smells horrible as well. There we go. So that's the first part of our lamp head thing, and that should now just screw on there. It's got a little retention screw in there, so we've got to unscrew that first. It's tight on there. A bit more because we want to hit the earth. Blimey. Almost no thread on that. There's almost no threading on this whatsoever. There's maybe 6mm, 7mm thread. So what I'm going to do is just cut a little bit off this. Because otherwise we'll see the thread. Same again, we don't want it to snap, so as it starts to come off, we'll... Right, let's try again. See, now we've only got a tiny thread on there, which is a lot less than you'd normally like to see. Right, much better. Lovely. What I'll do is I'll clean this up because we need to put some Galv spray on it anyway. That'll just protect the metalwork in the threading that we've just done. You won't really see this spray ever. Like, it's not done for aesthetic. It's really just done to stop any rust coming up. See, and I'm using the cloth here to just get rid of any residue, so the actual spray stays in that thread. Because we don't want to see it basically. Where did I put the... Oh, what I'll do now is I'll take back over. So you see we took that thread right down, and then you see how it's like that grey sort of colour. That's the spray we just put in. This little screw here, that's the retention screw. So when we have got it in, screwed in nice and tight, Then we screw that retention screw up now. But you see what I mean by the thread? That's now on there nice and tight. You can't see any thread on display. So that keeps it all looking nice and neat and tidy. Almost professional, as we say. So what I'm going to do is, just while this is still in the vise, just going to spray a bit on this threaded end as well. This is the machine thread, so it should be relatively clean and tidy anyway, but I don't think they put the Gal spray on it. So in general, I've always just sprayed it on anyway. Again, we'll get the residue off because we just want it inside there basically. Right, that's our main run done. So this will end up being our main lamp holder. So that's our main structure. Now we just got to do the legs. So legs in general, because we've got to get them in this and be able to thread it, we need them to be somewhat long enough so we can still get a growing on them. So I think normally I go about 200mm full length. Try 200 and see how we go. I've got enough offcuts here anyway, so. So we've got to do that 4 times. So again, what I'll do is I'll leave it running on record, but I'll probably just whiz through it. Right, so now this is our first one of 4 cut. I thought it was recording, but it wasn't either way. So I've cut it, threaded it. We'll have a look in a minute, but we're aiming for about 20mm thread. So I'll bring you over so we can see the thread. Right, so that's the actual thread we've got on it. Obviously the other side, that's the machine thread, but we're basically going to make 4 identical to this. And the reason why we're going to do that is because they're going to be our legs. And the reason why we do 20mm is because this coupler is about 40mm and that's threaded inside, you see. So we want this to be, when it's at its full tightness, half of that coupler, you see. So then the other half of our coupler will be whatever else we've got going in. Obviously, if you're doing this for like just trying to put cables through it for something industrial, then you would have another length of this would screw into there. You might have to over thread it, stuff like that. But for what we're doing, this is perfect. So what I'll do is I'll start cutting the rest of these. I might leave you on record and just fast forward through it for you. We'll see how we get on. Right, now we've got our 4 identical legs. So each one is 200mm thread to thread. So then that's an extra 20mm when we add the thing on each side. So we're 240mm full on direction with all the bits and bobs added. So the next bit is 3 of these are going to be empty and we're just going to put these little threaded bungs in. But what we're going to do is, because over time these start to come loose, just because they're threaded and we can't really tighten them up any more than the thread is on it. So we're just going to drop a little bit of super glue on the thread and then thread her in, and then she'll be in there for life then. One of these is going to have what they call a stuffing gland. I'll go through it a bit more in a bit, but that's obviously where the cable itself is going to come into to then feed up to the lamp itself. So let's do these 3 first. So literally, I'd say any old super glue, doesn't really matter because it's not holding anything as such. It's literally just so it doesn't rattle itself loose. I've just got this stuff because it was in the, didn't work before anyway, so. Right, round 2 of trying super glue. So this time I've got some actual Loctite because that Gorilla stuff was rubbish. And so we just got to literally just put, I only need like a drop really on each bit. So I don't know if you can see down there. We just literally, just enough just so I can see it actually coming out. As soon as it's out, put one of these on. And now that will never like wiggle itself out. So I'll do that for all 3 of them. And then I'll get back to you when we've got the stuffing gland going. All right, here we go. So that's all 3 of our legs done. this is super glued onto this, and then this is super glued onto this. So basically, over time, that won't wiggle off. This down here, we put the Galv spray on and stuff, but we can't put the super glue on these bits because these bits need to be disassembled when we send it out through packaging and stuff. You'll see at the end, but basically when this is all out and set, it's a lot harder to then deliver that to someone. It's easier to let them unscrew it all, and they can screw it all when it gets to site. So the last one, which we will put a bit of super glue for the stuffing gland, but so this here is a 20mm stuffing gland. It's just a bit of plastic and it's threaded at 20mm, same as the thread on this. And again, I'll just put a bit of super glue in there because we don't want this rattling loose. There we go, so that's nice and tight in there. And if you see in there, there's like a black plastic rubber. It's like a rubber seal that compresses down. And eventually when we've got a cable in there, that'll compress down on that cable and stop the cable from snagging or pulling whenever it was being like transported and stuff. So next thing is we've got a tiny bit of cable left. This was obviously a 50-meter drum at one point. I've used most of it in the making of all the lamps. So we're going to feed this through and up our main central bit on our lamp. This is going to be the main thing that feeds our lamp holder at the top. Right, and the first time I did these, I actually used ferrules on the unit, but then realised that the ferrules ended up pushing against the outside of the lamp. So we'll just strip it, twist it, and put that on there. So let's have a look. So this is the main actual bit that holds the lamp. So when you screw the lamp on, the lamp touches on the center pin here, and it touches on the surround, which is your neutral there. And then that drops into that bit, which then in turn, this screws on, and this is your actual projector. As far as I can tell, it literally just holds in there, basically. The earth obviously rubs up against this metalwork, which in turn touches the rest of the metalwork, and we're going to earth it at the foot as well, so it's sort of double earthed. No chance of it, having an earth stoppage or whatever. No chance of the earth cable coming out and then the metalwork not being earthed. So as far as that goes on there and that threads through it. Lovely. Always check before we do, because otherwise we've got to redo it. So in terms of this cable, it's not too far off the flat twin and earth that we did for our lights up there, but it's just a little bit more awkward to strip. So you just kind of got to score it and twist it as you go. Give it a little pull apart, see where it's weak, see where it's tight. Now the terminals on this lamp are very, very small, so we'll try and just twist and then loop it back on itself. So we've got a tiny bit of copper showing, but that should fill up the entire hole of the lamp holder itself. Let's have a look. So you see on this lamp holder how tiny these little screws are and these little holes are. What we've done is we've twisted that cable up and then bent it over on itself, so it should take up most of that hole. And the reason why we want it to take up most of the hole, it means when the screw goes down on it, it'll be much more filled with the cable, which means it's much less likely that it will go wrong. Screw that. So in general, your center point is normally your live, which means this one here is our live cable. Live is brown, so that go into that one. Getting it nice and tight, tug test, and just make sure that no copper's showing on the outside of that brass. Same again for the neutral. And same again for the earth. Nice. Right. So you see how there's no copper showing outside of where we're actually got the terminals in. And then we're all set up. In terms of this going in here, you see this little tag there. That's the earth tag that we want to be pressed against this metalwork. It basically gives us just another point of earthing. There's never a situation where you can't have too much earthing, you know? Especially on something like a lamp that's going in someone's house. Anyone could be touching it. Ah, there we go. So we're basically in there where we need to be. It's a bit annoying because there's no like fixing for that. It just sort of loosely sits there. And we put our cover on. So our cover's this, which is obviously plastic around there. And then that plastic divide just stops any of that live touching on the outsides and bits and bobs like that. So I don't know if you can see in there. Try and get it up like that. So you got, that's the neutral, rubbing there against the plastic. And then if I switch it around, that's the live, which is just up there, rubbing against the plastic. So basically none of our terminals are touching the metalwork, which is obviously what we want. That's right. Next thing is we want to work out how long we want our cable to be. So if that's the lamp, we might as well give it 2 meters probably normally. I basically do 2 meters as standard, and then if someone wants 5 meters, they just give me a shout and I'll just make it 5 meters, but I really do 5 meters for everyone. All right, and now this is where we start putting, so this, this is our dome head. So this is what's actually going to attach that metal rod onto our intersection beezer box, which is the next bit I'll show you. So that's what it's called a dome cap. Dome cap goes on first. Dome cap's what's actually going to attach to our intersection. Our intersection is going to have the legs off, and that'll be our main structure. So what we want to do before we go too crazy, it's a lot easier to do this now. We'll feed this through one of the holes, so we're ready to go. And then that will screw onto there. But there's one thing I want to do beforehand. So now we know where we're coming down. We're going to strip it here a little bit. We just want the earth out of it, basically. Because what we're going to do is just going to put another little fly lead for our earth to go on that at the bottom of that intersection box, just to give us another protective point. Right, so that's what we're after. So we've literally just got cables out, nothing's been cut. Now we can strip just the earth, and we're going to make a loop on it. And then we're going to screw that loop with a special screw into the back of the intersection box that we're just about to do. again, life would be a lot easier if you just cut it, but honestly, every single cut you make into cable and then join again, that join becomes your weakest link. So it's just another thing to go wrong down the line. And obviously, when I was selling these all over the place, the last thing I want is one of them to go wrong in the middle of nowhere or something, and I've got to try and get out there to fix it, or just have to give them a refund sort of thing. At least this way I could be pretty confident that one, it's going to be super safe, and two, very little chance that it will go wrong. So, and that's our loop. So that loop will be what we thread into this little hole on the intersection box. Yeah, it's even got a picture of the earth for us to let us know it's the right thing to do. Right, it's nice and tight in there now. As you can see, tight in there now. So we can then all that in there, which is going to be our excess. Line that up, and grab another 2 screws, and that'll screw that on. Okay. Screw that one in as well. There we go. Next part is done. So eventually, you see our earth screw. We've just got to cut that down with a little hacksaw so it's nice and flush with this. But what we're going to do is, could just put that in there, couldn't I? Yeah, we'll do that. We'll stick this in here now quickly. We'll cut that off. Nice. Right, so that's that cut off. Now we're just going to thread our legs on. So we'll start with the 3 legs. Start with those 3 legs that are bunged off. So obviously that's not the cable one. You sort of see there what I mean. So we don't want to see the thread. So as we're screwing it in, sort of show you on that one. As we're screwing it in, our thread's disappearing. The thread's disappearing down there. And then we get to a nice point like that. Same again. Same again. That's our thread. Through there. Lovely. So that's 3 of our legs on. Now on with the stuffing gland. So our stuffing gland is the bit that's going to hold our cable in place so it doesn't get snagged and caught, because obviously we've stripped that cable off in there, so we don't want that stripped bit poking its way out anywhere. So all right, thread again. All right, nice and tight. Right, so that's all our legs. That's this cable through here. Now we just tighten up this stuffing gland, and then that will make sure our cable can't be pulled in or out. There we go. You see how that closes tight on there? cutting compound all over my hands as well, which is lovely. Right, there we go. So let's move the blender out of the way for a second. Clean that up. Obviously my floor's not very level, but there you go. Right, that's one step closer, but realistically what we want to do, these are called distance saddles, and the reason I know that is because that distance there between the back of the conduit and the face there is the exact same dimension from the circle there to the base here. So when you put that on, it literally keeps everything nice and level. Because at the minute, the base is touching the floor before the legs are. So for that, just going to stick 4 of these on at the ends up against the coupler. And that'll keep it nice and level. So how these work, this has got 2 screws. And that separates the base from the clamp. Basically, just because it looks a bit better, I think we'll put them all up to the ends of the couplers, and then it keeps them all uniformed. Good thing with these as well is you can use them if you are putting it on something that isn't level. You can use these to level it out by either packing out the back of it, depending on how unlevel it is. You can sort of pack out the bottom of it, or you can pack out behind this clamp, so you'd still look the same, but you'd just be that little bit more level. I did at one point get asked if I could do this exact thing, but then spray it all black or antique brass. But realistically, I just said to the customer, I was like, I might as well make it for you and then you spray it. Because I don't really do a lot of spray painting and bits and bobs like that. I kind of figured I'd probably mess it up. All right, there we go. So that's all the legs on there. All right, now it's plug top. So it's a bit annoying because I need to go and buy some 3 amp fuses because I completely forgot. I thought I had some left over, but clearly I don't. So what we'll do is, just for the sake of the video, we'll stick this on. But just know, if you are doing something like lighting or anything like that, it has to be a 3 amp fuse in your plug top. So that's your inside of your plug. Your fuse is on your live. This down here is your neutral, which is this pin. And then this up here, which is your longest pin, is your earth. So your earth hits first, then your live, then your neutral. Live, neutral both hit at the same time, I should state. But your earth hits into the plug top first, should I say. All right, first thing to do, take your cable, see where your cable clamp is. You basically want to strip just after that, and you want it long enough that it will go into the earth terminal. So we're here. Same thing again. Strip, strip. Black bit off. And just double check it. So as we're in the clamp, that earth will get into that top terminal. And now for plug tops, you're basically going to strip off about 5mm. So that. Then where your strip lands, neutral's your second longest. So you basically cut off 5mm and then strip 5mm. And then where your live is the shortest, you cut where you've just stripped on the other one. See that line? I don't know what the camera can see, to be honest, so I'm hoping it could pick it up. And then 5mm on that. Then that are all done. Give them a nice twist. Again, ferrules should be used in flex, but realistically in a plug top, a lot of the time you just can't fit them in. I've got some in the van. Maybe I should show you. Yeah, so anyway, earth in at the top. Screw that down nice and tight again. Don't want to see any of the copper showing past the brass. And then now normally this is where I'll go from earth. I'll then do the live because they're the ones that are straight. The neutral, we just got to put a little loop on it. Right, there we go. Same again there. So you see we've got neutral's not in yet, but live's in there. We've got no copper showing through the brass, but our screw isn't screwing down on the insulation. It's only screwing down on the copper inside. So now we go our neutral. Make sure it stays twisted together. Lovely, same again. So that's our neutral. So this obviously is a 13 amp fuse, but I'm going to swap that out before I send it out to a 3 amp fuse. But just for the sake of this video, we'll leave it as it is. Lid goes on, and then you've got your retention screw for the lid just in here. That's it. Easy as that. So I'll go get a lamp. Ah, so there we go, lamp complete. I don't know how long it took us, probably an hour, maybe two. Yeah, it wasn't very long, but literally, so that's on in there. Switch it on at the plug. There we go, lamp sorted. Not a bad little shout, really, was it? Not a lot, not a lot to it. One length of conduit, one intersection, one dome head, 4 galv couplers, 4 galv distance saddles. Unfortunately, the ground in here is so unlevel that I can't really show you much, but there you go. Here's what it is. But yeah, obviously next thing, I don't know if you noticed, but the cable drums, this is what we're going to do. Next, we're going to turn these 2 into just 1, because that's a pretty good height for my chairs. I couldn't get just one big one because it wouldn't fit in here really. I've got no, if I bought the big one in, then I'd have no space for anything else. So yeah, we'll go this way, but to get the height, we're just going to do 2. Yeah, so catch us on the next one. But yeah, wasn't a bad little shout, was it? The only thing I would say is if you're doing this yourself, try and just get the cable that you need for the amount of lamps you're going to make, because there's no point in buying a 50 meter drum if you're only going to make like 2 lamps and stuff. Galv conduit's pretty easy to get a hold of pretty much everywhere, 20mm galv. Everything else pretty easy to get hold of. I quite like the writing still on it. It looks like it's a bit more industrial looking, I think personally, but it's all entirely up to you. Obviously this is a fancy LED filament bulb in here, but obviously you could go wherever you want. The lock rings are a bit annoying. I don't really understand what that lock ring is yet, but if I do find out, I'll put it in the comments, because it is 1.5 inches in the diameter, but the threading is different. It's like a real fine thread, and the lock rings I've got are like a 1.5mm thread. This seems like a 0.5mm thread or something on it. But yeah, I'll have a look into it and I'll write something on the comments if I find out. Because it's a bit annoying, because without the lock rings, you can't put a lampshade on here. So I've got to get that sorted. But yeah, so 3 amp fuses only in lights, whatever you do, if you're making these 3 amp fuses. The cable itself, as you see, it works, but the cable itself isn't rated for 13 amp. So unless you're buying 2.5mm cable, which is way thicker than you need, 0.75mm cable is perfect, as long as you fuse it down to 3 amp. But yeah, on that note, any questions, chuck them in the comments and stuff, or anything else you want to see. I did at one point build towel rails and all sorts out of conduit, because this device here is a pipe bender, so it can sort of do all the bends on it and stuff. So you get two 90-degree bends to make a towel rail that will just hang on a wall somewhere there. Yeah, all sorts of other bits above. So yeah, we've got the table next, and then I don't know what else we'll do.